everyone. My name is Anup, and welcome to Cine Bait. I've wanted to start this podcast for quite some time now, but things never really fell into place. There were so many things that happened, but recently, due to the pandemic, everything has changed. Everyone's life has been uprooted. So, I thought, why not now? Everyone is spending more time at home, and if my thoughts and analysis can help someone discover something new, or even view a movie through a different lens, then I will consider this podcast to be successful. I wanted this podcast to stand apart from other film podcasts as I didn't want to follow a fixed structure or pigeonhole myself into one type of cinema. The beauty of cinema is that it varies based on its location, culture, language, and even genre. With this podcast, I just wanted to cover whatever I'm watching in a particular week. It may have a particular theme or maybe not. Doesn't mean it can't be interesting, right? However, one structure that I did want to follow was that I wanted to construct a story. This means I might go into more detail about some story points than most of you are used to. This could be considered as a spoiler by some, but I really feel if I start tiptoeing around spoilers, then I cannot have a proper and detailed discussion about a movie. So please stop this podcast if you're really looking forward to a film that you want to know nothing about. I've found from my personal experience though that if it's good, the spoilers won't necessarily disrupt my enjoyment of a film. So, without further ado, let's sit back and start the first episode of Cine Bait. Today's episode is gonna be really bittersweet. From the title itself, you could have guessed what I'm gonna be talking about today. The sad passing of Sushant Singh Rajput at the young age of 34. This has raised a lot of questions in the Bollywood industry, but that's not going to be the focus of today's episode. I instead wanted to celebrate the life he lived and the amazing performances that he has provided us over the last couple of years. For all the people hearing about him for the first time, I want to give a brief rundown of his career. Sushant Singh Rajput was born in the state of Bihar, in India. His path towards acting in films was not quite straightforward as he had to change his career paths a few times. Initially, he enrolled in the mechanical engineering program from a very prestigious Indian college where he had completed 3/4 of his degree. But then he decided to opt out as he had gained an interest in theatre and dancing. This caused him to shift focus and led him to Mumbai, where he entered the world of advertisement and eventually television. In 2009, he starred in an immensely popular series that allowed him to audition and secure a role in his first film, Kai Po Che. Kai Po Che is a movie that released in 2013 and is based upon a Chetan Bhagat novel called The Three Mistakes of My Life. The phrase Kai Po Che is commonly uttered in Gujarat when a person cuts another competitor's kite during a kite flying competition. I know a random fact, but something interesting, especially if you had no idea that a sport like kite flying even existed. This movie is based on the life of three friends: Ishan, played by Sushant Singh Rajput, Omi, played by Amit Saad, and Govind, played by Rajkumar Rao. It's about the different challenges they face while trying to set up a sports business with the political climate of India as a backdrop. Now, I am going to give some spoilers for the movie, so in case you don't want to know anything about this movie, please skip ahead to the next movie. Here is the plot of the movie, as per Wikipedia. The film begins with Govind Patel, played by Rajkumar Rao, giving a presentation in a school about the services provided by a sports club. In the subsequent scene, we see Omkar Shastri, played by Amit Saad, sitting in prison and about to be released. We see Govind coming to receive Omi from prison, and on their way back, they reminisce about their carefree days with their friend Ishan. Ishan, played by Sushant Singh Rajput, is an ex-district level cricketer who was a victim of politics in the cricketing selection fraternity. Omi, who is a nephew of a Hindu politician who is in charge of funding Omi's father's temple, and we have Govind, who's really penchant about business and numbers. Together, they decide to open a sports shop with an academy to train and promote talented and budding cricketers. After toiling hard, they succeed in establishing it as a center for cricket amongst the local youth and start to incur profits. Meanwhile, Ishan requests Govind to teach his sister, who's played by Amrita Puri, mathematics as her exams are coming up. Govind, albeit reluctant at first, eventually agrees. Vidya and Govind cautiously start forming a romantic connection and gradually become physically intimate. Omi discovers this and warns Govind of the consequences as Ishan is very protective of his sister. In a parallel story, the three friends spot a budding cricketer in a local boy named Ali Hashmi who has a rare talent, and Ishan starts training him vigorously. Govind's focus, however, is on expanding their business by opening a shop in a mall being constructed in an upcoming part of the city. With financial help coming from Omi's maternal uncle, Bittu, the trio secure the deal and set up a shop in the mall. Disaster strikes though, as a destructive earthquake hits Gujarat and the mall is destroyed. Govind is shattered as the sum of money they had invested was quite large and they are now burdened with a huge debt, which causes Omi to reluctantly start working for Bittu's right-wing Hindu nationalist party. The destruction caused by the earthquake further impacts Ishan and Omi's friendship as Ishan tries to aid the Muslims within the community by bringing them to the relief camp set up by Bittu's party, but when the party's officials decline to give them shelter, Ishan and Omi quarrel over their politico-religious outlook and temporarily break off their friendship. This didn't last long though, because as they're soon reunited when India surprisingly defeats Australia in a cricket test match. Soon afterwards though, Omi gets busy with the religious politics, whereas Ishan and Govind continue to expand their business by approaching schools for coaching and selling sports supplies. Tensions arose though in the political sphere, where Bittu loses the elections in the constituency to his opponent. As a part of their campaigning, Bittu sends pilgrims, which included Omi's parents, to Ayodhya, which is the birthplace of Lord Ram. On the day of their return though, shocking news of the Godhra train massacre reaches the people. Omi is shattered, but Bittu convinces him to take revenge on the murderers of his parents. This results in communal riots within the city. In order to protect Ali, Ishan and Govind come to his house. As expected, the violence starts by sunset, and the mob led by Bittu storms into the Muslim locality, killing every Muslim in sight. A fight ensues between Ali's father, Nasir, and Bittu. This leads to Nasir stabbing Bittu in self-defense, and when Omi sees this, he is enraged by the death of his uncle and follows Nasir with a gun. Meanwhile, Ishan comes to know about Vidya and Govind's relationship when he reads Vidya's text message in Govind's mobile phone about a false pregnancy. Enraged, he starts thrashing Govind when Omi enters the premises with a gun in his hand, desperate for revenge. Ishan and Govind break off their own fight and try to stop Omi as he desperately searches for Ali and Nasir. Omi finally aims and shoots at Ali. Ishan, however, instinctively jumps in front of Ali and saves him. However, he gets shot. Seeing his friend lying unconsciously bleeding makes Omi realize the error of his ways. In the wake of Ishan's death, he is left behind with grieving friends and family. The movie flash forwards to present day. Govind brings Omi to meet Ishan, his 10-year-old son. Vidya forgives Omi when he breaks down crying in front of her. The film ends with a now grown-up Ali, played by Tahir Rajput, debuting for the Indian cricket team against Australia. He plays his first shot by hitting the ball straight to the boundary with a cover drive just like Ishan had taught him. Ishan's spirit is shown smiling at Ali's achievement, and the movie fades away to darkness. So that was the basic story point for the movie. Kai Puche overall is a very good adaptation of the novel, as they kept all the major story points while also fleshing out the characters. This can be difficult sometimes, as seen in most YA Hollywood adaptations, but the director of this movie, Abhishek Kapoor, along with the editor Deepa Bhatia, have constructed a narrative where they keep the story moving at a brisk pace. At this time, I would like to mention Amit Trivedi though, who is one of my favorite music composers working in Bollywood today. He has provided 3 songs for this movie which work well with the narrative and blend nicely in the background. One thing I would like to mention about the music in Bollywood movies is that if done well, it can add tone and bring emotional resolution to the film as compared to abruptly stopping the narrative for no particular reason. All 3 songs take place in the first half of the narrative, which is more light-hearted and shows the bonding of the 3 friends. Based on the setup and acting, it is well established that the characters have known each other since childhood. Each character has a different personality. Ishan, the cricket player, is brash, angry, loving, and caring, regardless of caste, color, or creed. Omi, on the other hand, adores Ishan and is portrayed brilliantly by Amit Saad. However, with the political backdrop of the movie and his connection to the political party, we see him slowly transitioning as he enters into politics in the later half of the film. Govind, on the other hand, is very money minded, and the responsibility to set up a new business mostly falls on his shoulders. This is not portrayed as a bad thing in the film, though. We get a glimpse of his life at home, and while they are poor, it is his ambition to succeed that drives his narrative through the rest of the film. Despite facing challenges, the thing we take away from this movie is that the three friends always come back to each other. This type of friendship is usually not depicted in Bollywood movies and is a breath of fresh air to view on screen. Apart from Govind and Vidya's relationship, there is no romantic development in the story. Their story, however, is shot and handled very differently as compared to the rest of the story. Rajkumar Rao and Amrita Puri portray their characters as real people. There is attraction, but also there are constraints. Govind is her brother's best friend, along with being her teacher. She, on the other hand, is very unapologetic about what she wants. She makes the first move and states her intentions very clearly. Their relationship is depicted with a certain level of respect and mutual desire. Their relationship is shot with a fable-like look, where cinematographer Anay Goswami illuminates the screen whenever the two characters are seen together, enough to notice but not in a distracting manner. Abhishek Kapoor seems to slow down time while shooting these characters, as he wants to convince the viewers that these characters are falling in love. The rest of the movie, however, is shot in a very straightforward manner, with a yellow tint over it so as to make the city look old and lived in. The other two main backdrops in this movie are politics and cricket. Let's get cricket out of the way first because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Cricket, as most of you know, is a craze in India. This immensely popular sport is the driving force of this movie. It not only gives Ishan a purpose, it also helps Govind and Omi grow as people as they build their business. It also introduces Ali to the story, which creates some tension amongst Omi and Ishan, as he is from a Muslim family, whereas Omi was brought up in a house of a Hindu priest. I know most of you don't realize the divide caused by religion in India, but this movie helps demonstrate the tension, albeit in a slightly rushed manner, as it trusts its viewers to have a certain knowledge of the culture before delving deep into the world of Kaipoche. Politics is the second major backdrop of the narrative. The background of Omi helps intermingle their lives with politics. First, his uncle provides them with a shop near a Hindu temple. When they need a loan, they again have to depend on the uncle, which puts them under more debt. Finally, when the mall collapses and they cannot pay back the deposit amount to him, Omi has to join the political party, where he starts changing and starts using the terms such as us versus them. This discrimination is prevalent throughout the society. I have realized, sadly quite late in life, that everyone just accepts this as a normal. This divide, unknowingly or knowingly, is presented to children that they continue to enact upon once they grow up. Ishan here acts as the moral center of the story. He looks past religion and steps forward to help people in need after the destruction caused by the earthquake. Sushant Singh Rajput has portrayed this character with a brash innocence, where he lives for his friends and can do anything for them. He helps guide Ali through his anger and helps him become a better player. He decides to bring Muslims to the Hindu disaster relief site without any hesitation. His morality sets him apart and sends him to protect Ali and his father when the riots break out in the city. He is seen as an inspiring figure that ends up losing his own life while protecting someone else's. The regret and shame in Omi's eyes when he sees the younger Ishan and Vidya in present day speaks volume. This movie really moved me when I saw it this time. With the current political climate being as tense as it is in India, we can see that an act of kindness can have a lasting impact. I feel that setting the story through the lens of three friends helps soften the blow of communal politics and the lingering effects on the individuals being impacted. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. It made me tear up when they came together after a fight, when the music swells up, or when you see the instant regret of a decision in one's eyes. This movie is currently streaming on Netflix, and despite me giving away some major plot points, I would still recommend watching Kaipoche, as something can be taken away from this by everyone. Now let's move on to a second movie called Shuddh Desi Romance, which was a film released in 2013 under one of India's biggest production houses. This movie was directed by Manish Sharma and starred Sushant Singh Rajput, Pariniti Chopra, Rishi Kapoor, and introduced Vani Kapoor. This movie is set in the city of Jaipur, often known as the Pink City, as there are a lot of pink colored buildings present here. Shuddh Desi Romance demonstrates a fresh take on the love stories being produced in India. Here, the protagonist is not a typical Bollywood hero who follows any basic romance structure, most popularized by another Yash Raj production film, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. Let's give a quick rundown about this movie, and we can come back to Shuddh Desi Romance. So, a boy studies in London. Girl's father settles in London but misses India. Decides that the girl is to be married in India. Girl agrees, but only if she is allowed to go on tour in Europe for a month before the wedding. The dad agrees. The girl meets the boy on tour. They hate each other at first, then they fall in love. Girl comes back to India to get married. Boy follows the girl back. The boy befriends the groom, impresses the girl's family, declares his love, gets beaten the shit out of him. The girl cries uncontrollably, melts father's heart, and he then allows the girl to leave and live happily with the hero. This 1990s love story is updated for the modern world, where a girl is open about her past. The boy cannot make up his mind about marriage, and another girl just wants some closure after being left at the altar. Actually, let's back up a little. Here is the synopsis of the movie from Wikipedia. Raghu Ram, as played by Sushant Singh Rajput, is a tourist guide in Jaipur who doubles up as a rental Bharati, which is just a member of a wedding party, for Gokhale, played by Rishi Kapoor, who is a wedding planner and a caterer. The film starts on Raghu's wedding day, where he is experiencing premarital jitters before his arranged marriage. For the wedding, Gokhale hires a fake wedding party to accompany Raghu, which includes Gayatri, who is played by Pariniti Chopra. She is an independent and open-minded woman who lives her life on her own terms. On the way to the wedding venue, Raghu sits next to Gayatri on the bus and they start talking. Casually, he brings up his nervousness, and considering it to be a common occurrence, Gayatri asks him to just get some rest. They continue chatting and the tension rises between them. Suddenly, Raghu makes the first move and kisses Gayatri, which he reciprocates. Raghu realizes he's making a mistake marrying a person he doesn't even know and falls for Gayatri. A confused Raghu, heavily impressed by her pursuit of freedom, gathers his guts and runs away from his wedding, leaving his bride-to-be behind. A fortnight later, the two run into each other again and begin dating, which eventually turns into a live-in relationship. In India, such relations are socially frowned upon, so they hide the relationships from the neighbors by pretending to be siblings. A neighbor of Gayatri's, Mr. Gupta, catches them and tries to create distrust between them, but the couple are able to reconcile and decide to get married. However, on the day of the wedding, Gayatri, who had been previously betrayed in her relationships, starts to feel nervous and runs out on him, leaving Raghu inconsolable. Soon after the wedding, Raghu meets Tara, which is played by Vani Kapoor, the woman he was originally going to marry before he met Gayatri. She asks him out initially on a revenge trip, but slowly forgives him as they start dating. Just as Raghu is about to ask her to marry him at a wedding, he runs into Gayatri. The bride's mom sends Raghu and Gayatri to pick up the priest from the station. On the way, Gayatri tries to talking to Raghu, but he is reluctant. Later at dinner, Raghu finds Tara and Gayatri sitting on the same table. Tara tells him that she invited Gayatri for dinner on Sunday. Raghu gingerly makes excuses for the bathroom. Gayatri follows him, and they confess their love for each other. Tara arrives and catches them in a loving embrace. Tara soon realizes, though, that she doesn't love Raghu anymore, and she leaves without any explanation, while Raghu and Gayatri are led by Gokhale to accept that they love each other and that they should get married. 3 days later, on the night of their wedding, Raghu and Gayatri run into each other at the main gate while they're trying to run away from their own wedding. The scene cuts back to Gayatri's home, where Raghu is sitting by the door and he confesses that this was the only place he had ever felt at home. They realize their love for each other, but the thought of confining their relationship with the bond of marriage due to social norms terrified them, which made them want to continuously run away from each other. They soon decided that they were happiest when they did not have to put constraints on their relationship and agreed to resume their live-in relationship without any external prejudice. Shuddh Desi Romance is a light and entertaining flick that addresses the fickle feelings that drive relationships today. The advent of dating apps are proof that we are always on the lookout for someone else until we find that one special person without whom you feel incomplete. You tend to miss them when you aren't in the same room as them, when just their presence is enough to soothe you. The character of Raghuram is portrayed very delicately by Sushant Singh Rajput. He's so confused that he makes the viewers confused as to why he decided to even get married. Bad as it may be, it is still endearing to watch. There is such innocence in his performance that the character is just seen as a young child looking for something that even he is unaware of. That is until he meets Gayatri. Gayatri has been through heartbreak before. She knows what lies ahead. Where Raghuram is uncertain about the future, Gayatri is struggling with the past and trying to recuperate from it. Without realizing, they both come into each other's life and they can't stay apart. This is the condition of modern love though. Slightest issues push us away. We can't say what we really feel. It's better to hold back our feelings rather than putting it all on the table for the fear of getting hurt. This world is colorful, musical, and lively. However, there is a lingering sadness among the characters who are all trying to figure out their place. Manish Sharma utilizes the background score with such finesse that it adds life to the movie. Sachin Jaggar's tracks are fun, with some Rajasthani flair that help you get accustomed to the setting, while also easing the tension in a scene. They have also developed another female character that is not just a placeholder to incorporate a love triangle in the story. Vani Kapoor's character, Tara, is a strong, independent woman who is just looking for some closure. She cannot compute what goes in her head when Raghu leaves her at the altar, but she is confident enough to figure out what went wrong, as well as smart enough to see that Raghu deserves to be with a person as commitment phobic as him. Coming in at 140 minutes, this movie does feel a little stretched out, but the actors keep you entertained throughout, while you also try to figure out who is meant to end up together. Gayatri and Raghu are as confused as each other, but at the end of the day, they are at their happiest when together. Not everyone will take something away from this movie. Some movies speak for a certain demographic more than others. Shuddh Desi Romance feels to fall in the same category. People who are of the same age as the characters can probably relate to the messy world of dating, while people older than them probably react like Rishi Kapoor's character and says, just get married and deal with the problems later. Overall a light film, it will entertain you, but don't expect to grasp anything too meaningful from it. Maybe other than the fact that if you do find that one special person, don't ever let them go, or else you might live on to regret your decision. Before we move on to the next film, Sushant Singh Rajput also acted in a movie called PK, but as it was an extended cameo, I might cover it at length in a future podcast. Maybe one about Rajkumar Hirani, the film's director. Let's continue on with Byomkesh Bakshy. Just off the bat, I love this movie. I'm going to go into some detail with this movie, but the craft I display in this movie is masterful. Backed by Yash Raj Film, it's the same production house as Shuddh Desi Romance. This film delivers on its promise set up by the incredible previews. However, the fact that the audiences did not go to see this in theaters is thoroughly disappointing. Detective Byomkesh Bakshy is a 2015 thriller directed by Dibakar Banerjee, one of my favorite filmmakers working in India today. The character was created by Sharadindu Bandyopadhyay, I hope I didn't mess that up, and takes place during the Second World War in the city of Calcutta, now known as Kolkata. The plot of this movie is very detailed, so do try to keep up. Again, I'm going to have spoilers for this movie, so please skip ahead if you don't want to know anything about it. Here is the summary from Wikipedia. The film begins in November 1942 in Kolkata, where a group of Chinese men from the Green Gang are smuggling opium from the docks. An unknown gang attacks them and one of them brutally blinds the Chinese gang leader. 2 months later, in January 1943, Ajit Banerjee, played by Anand Tiwari, approaches Byomkesh Bakshy, who is played by Sushant Singh Rajput. He asks him to locate his father, Bhuvan Banerjee, who has been missing for 2 months. Byomkesh rejects this request initially, but later on takes the case. The following day, he visits the lodging house Bhuvan Babu resided in, which is run by Dr. Anukul Guha, played by Neeraj Kabi. He is a physician. Byomkesh also meets Kanai Dao, played by Mayank Chang, an opium seller, and Ashwini Babu, who is Bhuvan Banerjee's roommate. Upon talking to Ashwini Babu, Byomkesh discovers Bhuvan Babu's missing pan box, which contained his custom-made formula that Ashwini Babu had stolen and is now addicted to. Let's take a breather while I explain what pan is. Pan is a mouth freshener made with betel leaves and has a paste of slaked lime with tobacco sometimes added to it. This can cause some psychoactive effects and is usually swallowed or spat out after consumption. This will come in use later on. So now, coming back to the story, Byomkesh then deduces that Bhuvan Babu has been murdered as he left his pan box containing his money, a single bus ticket, and the addictive formulation behind. He visits the closed chemical factory where Bhuvan Babu used to work, and he meets an actress named Anguri Devi over there, who is played by Swastika Mukherjee, the wife of the factory owner Gajanan Sikadar. While Byomkesh interrogates her, he notices her nervously hiding her purse. When Anguri goes to film a scene, Byomkesh goes through her contents of the purse and finds a set of letters containing words cut out from newspaper blackmailing Gajanan Sikadar. Byomkesh deduces that Gajanan Sikadar was responsible for killing Bhuvan Babu, who was trying to blackmail him. Byomkesh then visits Gajanan Sikadar's residence, where Sikadar's nephew Sukumar is trying to create his own political party against Sikadar. Byomkesh is then thrown out of the house when he tries to question Gajanan Sikadar about Bhuvan Babu. Byomkesh and Dr. Guha then go back to the factory and sneak in after conning the watchman. While inspecting the factory, they find Bhuvan Banerjee's slashed and decomposed body stuffed into one of the machines. Sikdar is brought in by Deputy Commissioner Wilkie for questioning. However, Byomkesh realizes from the dates on the Bhuvan Babu's letters that they were fake and Sikdar was being framed. Sikdar is then freed and Byomkesh follows him home but is stopped by Anguri Devi, who attempts to seduce him. He gently rebuffs her and goes to meet Sikdar, who immediately has a fit and passes away, having been poisoned. Suspicion falls on Sukumar, who has been making death threats to Sikdar. Dr. Guha leaves Kolkata temporarily but sends Byomkesh a letter and a stamp used on the fake letters, admitting that he was the one who faked the letters and killed Bhuvan Babu. Satyavati, played by Divya Menon, is Sukumar's sister who pleads with Byomkesh to help her brother, who she believes is innocent. Byomkesh finds the cab that Sukumar was last seen in, and the driver drops him at a Japanese dentist office named Dr. Watanabe. This was where Sukumar was last seen driving off with Watanabe. Byomkesh and Ajit go to meet Watanabe, saying that they are part of Sukumar's Spring Day campaign, but Watanabe soon realizes that they are imposters. Watanabe then sends another member of Sukumar's party to follow them. Byomkesh and Ajit, realizing they are being trailed, change their attires and then follow the young man back to Watanabe's house. Realizing the duo has outsmarted him, Watanabe murders the follower and his receptionist and escapes from there. Byomkesh takes a paper out of his follower's corpse's pocket, which contains a drawing which he realizes he has seen before. Meanwhile, Dr. Guha returns to the lodging house and meets Byomkesh and Ajit, admitting that he had committed the murders as he and Sukumar are working in cahoots to fight the country's freedom, saying Bhuvan Babu and Sikdar were killed for being traitors. Upon returning to their room, Ajit begins venting about his father and his overcritical treatment of Ajit, during which he reveals Bhuvan Babu had lost his job at Hind Chemicals when they had realized that his master formula had contained opium used to addict customers. Byomkesh then tries Bhuvan Babu's pan masala, which Ashwini Babu appears to be addicted to, and in a state of euphoria creates a wall painting of his understanding of the entire case, saying Sikdar had said the word young gun to Byomkesh just before dying. Byomkesh then has his own blood tested along with the pan, and while the blood had traces of heroin in it, the pan was clear, from which he deduces that the heroin was made by Bhuvan Babu, where the properties of the heroin cannot be traced until it has been consumed. Byomkesh learns from Kanai Dao that the opium supply in the local areas has been halted and asks him if he can maybe help Byomkesh meet any heroin suppliers. However, Kanai turns out to be a police officer and turns Byomkesh and Ajit into Deputy Commissioner Wilkie. Wilkie reveals to Byomkesh about the Green Gang and their enmity with one of the former members called Yang Guang, who wanted Calcutta's opium business for himself and was killed by the Green Gang, but has recently been touted to be alive. Byomkesh realizes Sikdar had said Yang Guang instead of Young Gun. Byomkesh then realizes that the drawing he had found in the volunteer's pocket was an outline of the river Ganga on Calcutta's map, which had set points where the Spring Day campaign was going to take place. With Kanai Dao's help, Byomkesh meets with the Green Gang, who helps him deduce that Yang Guang has set a deal with the Japanese, who will attack Calcutta at the Spring Day campaign points and take over Calcutta, which in turn will give them control over the opium trade in the city. Byomkesh also realizes that Anguri Devi is Yang Guang's lover, who she has not met in 4 years, who on Yang Guang's order had killed Sikdar and attempted to seduce Byomkesh, all along being in the dark about Yang Guang's original plan to have a deal with the Japanese. Byomkesh meets Wilkie and requests him to set off air raid sirens at 4 am in the morning of the Spring Day campaign. Wilkie refuses and Kanai defects to Byomkesh's side, as the latter had saved his life from the King Gang. Byomkesh requests Dr. Gua, Satyavati, Surkumar and Dr. Watnabe to meet him at the lodging house, saying he wishes to save them. Byomkesh then tells them about Yang Guang and reveals they had all been betrayed, and as he lays out the fact of the case, reveals that one of them was indeed Yang Guang. Everybody is shocked, but Dr. Gua starts laughing in a wild manner. Byomkesh then reveals that he has already informed the authorities, who had deployed an attack on the units at the station where the Japanese soldiers were about to land. Yang Guang then claims that Byomkesh is bluffing, and Anguri Devi tries to dissuade him from helping the Japanese conquer Calcutta, but he says that he loves her and lures her in, stabbing her brutally. In a turn of events, the air raid sirens actually do go off, and Yang Guang realizes that maybe Byomkesh was not bluffing. Byomkesh convinces Watnabe to stop the attack for the safety of his men, who then depart. The Green Gang, who were also present in the house, along with Kanai's help, attack Yang Guang as Byomkesh informs the panicking Satyavati that he was indeed bluffing and the volunteers, who were unknowingly helping with Yang Guang's plot, were going to be safe. Soon after, he is struck unconscious by a member of the Green Gang. Once Byomkesh gains consciousness 2 hours later, he is told by Ajit that the Green Gang has taken Yang Guang. Byomkesh asks Satyavati to marry him, to which she smiles in reply. As Byomkesh, Ajit and Satyavati watch the rising sun over the city of Calcutta, the Green Gang's blinded leader is seen ordering his son to blind Yang Guang, who then attacks the gang and kills them all, before swearing revenge against Byomkesh, who realizes Yang Guang might return. I know this plot seems confusing, but I wanted to reiterate, this movie is masterfully constructed. It may come across as a slow burn for some, but for the people that pay attention to the story, this movie brilliantly sidesteps our expectations and continues to surprise us at each turn. The moving chess pieces in this story are handled so beautifully that the screenwriters Dibakar Banerjee and Urmi Juvekar need to be given a special mention. The city of Calcutta comes alive in this film. It seems to be shot mostly in natural lighting, where the shadows are incorporated into the story to build on the tension as the mystery continues to get tangled. A special mention must also be given to the music of the movie, which is handled by various artists as they induce a feeling of heavy rock to demonstrate threat, but also soften the tone when required. I know I haven't gone too deep into Sushant Singh Rajput's acting so far into the podcast, but he really shines through in this movie. His minute mannerisms bring Byomkesh Bakshy to life. There is an unrest in his performance, where he's always on the lookout for something, some mystery to be solved. The way he cheers on the death of a patron simply because it helps resolve the mystery puts everyone at unease. He is not portrayed as a sterile protagonist. There is something dark always brewing in his head, which helps him excel as a detective. This ability to think unlike others. The supporting cast also gives a nuanced performance, with Neeraj Kabi and Anand Tiwari really standing out. Ajit, as played by Anand Tiwari, is the usual sidekick to any detective character, a la Watson to Holmes. However, there is no love here. Ajit comes to Byomkesh for help but gets so upset when Byomkesh insinuates that his father just ran away with the mistress or probably just died that he straight away attacks Bakshi without a thought. With time though, you see their relationship blossoming into a beautiful friendship. The scene where they are being trailed by the volunteer especially stands out, not just because of the beautiful score but also the trust the two characters show in each other. As the movie progresses, you can see a complete arc where Byomkesh teaches Ajit to stop and think before fighting, and Byomkesh learns compassion and maybe even a bit of humanity. Neeraj Kabi, as the antagonist, shines in the movie. You may now recognize him from Sacred Games or Patal Lok, but Ship of Theseus and Byomkesh Bakshi introduced him to film lovers. His nuanced performance continues to develop over the duration of the movie. He depicts the character of Anukul Guha with such curiosity and authority that it comes across as a surprise when he sends Byomkesh the stamp used for the fake letters. On the other hand, once the plot is laid out in front of everyone, the character of Yang Guang comes forth in such a smooth transition where you can see the insanity sparkle in Neeraj Kabi's eyes. As soon as the reveal takes place, his laughter pierces through the screen. Yang Guang is portrayed in such a wild character that you believe all the tall tales that have been spewed earlier in the film. You start to believe that he is the Moriarty to Bakshi's Sherlock Holmes, which is no easy task. He is also believable when he starts speaking Japanese or when he has to fight with a sword. The use of gore in the climax battle between Yang Guang and the Green Gang makes you wince, but is never unbelievable or over the top. Despite its many merits, there are some things that I did dislike about this movie though, which stops it from being perfect for me. The first is probably the pacing in the middle of the story, where it starts to drag as the viewers are being misled after one turn after another. Secondly, the performance by Swastika Mukherjee seems misplaced as Angura Devi in the movie, as she never feels comfortable with the material. It could be due to the language change, as she is prominently a Bengali actress, but in the end her performance comes across as a little stiff. Despite these minor nitpicks, which I can easily look past, we are given a taut thriller, which is rarely seen in Bollywood. It has a complex narrative, but the technical aspect of the film is constructed so well that you want to solve the mystery along with Byomkesh. The human nature is exposed for what it truly is. Having opium as a MacGuffin for the story works well, as it demonstrates the various addictions these characters have, and I'm not just talking about the drugs. Currently streaming on Amazon Prime, I would highly recommend finding and watching this film, as we don't often get such gems. Finally, the last movie I'll be talking about in today's episode, dedicated to Sushant Singh Rajput, is MS Dhoni, The Untold Story. This biographical picture covers the life of the Indian cricket team captain MS Dhoni and was released in 2016. This movie was directed by ace filmmaker Neeraj Pandey, who also wrote it along with Dilip Jha. A fun fact, this movie was released across 61 countries, making it the widest release ever for a Bollywood film at the time. A massive success, this movie ended up grossing twice of his considerable production budget. Given that this movie clocks in at 184 minutes, let's go over the plot really quickly. The film opens during the 2011 Cricket World Cup final where India is playing Sri Lanka. The tensions are really high as India has just lost another wicket. The camera zooms back on a jersey which reads Dhoni. We soon see the captain of the team, suggesting a change in the batting order as he wants to play earlier than originally planned. We then cut back to Ranchi on 7 July 1981, where a man named Pan Singh Dhoni, as played by Anupam Kher, is nervously pacing back and forth waiting for his child to be born. After a little confusion with the doctor in regards to the gender of the child, he happily announces the name of his newborn son, Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Pan Singh was a pump operator at a local school where he used to water the ground before sports practice. His son, now depicted as 14 years old, is spotted by a cricket coach who sees him excelling in goalkeeping while playing soccer. He invites Mahendra or Mahi to try out for the cricket team as a wicketkeeper. However, Mahi seems uninterested as he feels like playing with a bigger ball is more fun. After much persuasion, Mahi agrees and comes for the after-school tryouts. Soon, Mahi is selected and continues to improve his game, especially as a batsman and a wicketkeeper. 3 years later, Dhoni helps win an inter-school cricket match. After achieving much fame, Dhoni is selected for the Ranji Trophy, but his draft notice is held up in another city due to which he is late for reporting. His friends tried their best, but it just wasn't his day. However, Mahi doesn't give up, and in order to please his father, he joins the Kharagpur station as a ticket collector. Luckily for him, his supervisor is a huge fan of cricket and insists that Mahi practices every day after working in order to improve the game. This continues on for a few years. Eventually, Mahi starts feeling depressed as he does not feel like his game is improving or he is able to excel any further in the sport. After receiving a motivational speech from the supervisor though, he is more determined than ever and decides to play multiple tournaments, which starts impacting his job as a ticket collector. After a while, Mahi decides to give cricket his all and quits his job. He admits to his father that cricket is his only ambition and he wants to become a professional cricketer. As fate would have it, during a match within the same year, some national team scouts were present in the stands. In order to impress them, Mahi continued to hit the ball out of the boundary in their direction. Impossible not to notice they were highly impressed with Mahi and he was given a shot to join the national Indian cricket team. However, his performance in the initial games was not up to the mark and he kept fearing that he might be kicked out at any moment. During one of his flights though, he befriends a fellow passenger named Priyanka Jha, played by Disha Patani. Soon after, his luck turns around and he performs excellently in the following match. They continue meeting afterwards and eventually fall in love. After a while, we see that they are quite serious for each other and bring up marriage, to which Mahi replies, "What's the rush? We have plenty of time." The next day, he has to leave the city for a tournament, and as it's Valentine's Day, Priyanka decides to give him a gift. Tragedy strikes though, as she gets in a truck accident on her way back and passes away on the spot. This causes Dhoni to go into depression and results in a horrible performance during the 2007 Cricket World Cup. This strikes a chord with him and we soon see a determined player as he is promoted to the captain of the Indian team that wins the T20 World Cup and helps India achieve the #1 ranking in test matches. Some time passes. In 2010, we see Dhoni arrive at a hotel where he meets Sakshi Rawat, played by Kiara Advani. After a quick chat, he is pleasantly surprised that Sakshi doesn't recognize him, given that he is one of the most famous celebrities in the country. This appeals to him and he asks to meet her. Soon after, they start dating and eventually Dhoni proposes, without wasting any time as he did not want to repeat his mistakes. The movie progresses as we see their marriage and Dhoni starts training for the 2011 World Cup. After making some tough decisions as the captain of the team, Dhoni decides to replace some seasoned players with younger and more fitter players. The film that cuts back to the final of the World Cup. Dhoni comes out to bat. With a masterful game, Dhoni eases the pressure and gives India a real shot to win the tournament. Finally, with just 4 runs remaining to win the game, Dhoni is able to hit the ball right outside the boundary with a sixer, which leads India to victory. Everyone from his past and present is seen rejoicing as all their contribution has led to this moment. As the film continues to play out, we cut in footage of the real MS Dhoni celebrating this victory in a momentous occasion for the Indian cricket team and the country as a whole. MS Dhoni, The Untold Story, is constructed as a typical sports biographical movie, an underdog story, but that does not mean that it's not constructed in an interesting manner. Dhoni had to face a lot of challenges in order to achieve his dreams, but the journey is where we really see him for who he is. A hardworking individual that continued to improve his craft despite the numerous failures he faced in life. Seeing him overcome challenges is extremely motivational and makes you immediately try out for the Indian cricket team, but you then remember you don't really have any talent for playing cricket, so you sit down and continue watching the movie. Neeraj Pandey and Dilip Jha had a lot to do for the pre-production of this movie, and they had to do a lot of research, but they tried to stay as close to the truth as possible. Luckily, the real-life MS Dhoni was on board before pre-production even started. This allowed them to fill in any story points or discover facts that had not previously been disclosed. The film is shot by Sudhir Balsane, who had previously worked with Neeraj Pandey on Baby that had released just a year prior to The Untold Story. Making this movie was a huge undertaking, as it had to condense the entire life of a sportsman into a 3-hour biopic. Not an easy task, but the writers were so determined to focus on portraying the movie as a journey rather than a means to an end. You can see the anguish Dhoni feels as portrayed wonderfully by Sushant Singh Rajput, where he has to put on a brave face even when he is at his lowest. As viewers, you tend to forget that you are seeing an actor play Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Sushant inhabits the role. Right from the accent to the cricket performance, Sushant very delicately starts behaving like a cricketer from Ranchi. It is a treat to see him command the screen. In the sporting roles, Byomkesh as the father is portrayed in a typical manner where he is strict but has his son's best interest at heart. Although when he utters the lines, "I've never been so happy to be proven wrong in my life," when he makes it into the international cricket team, melts the viewer's heart. His love interests are not given much screen time though, as they do move the narrative forward but aren't really fleshed out. It is a delight to see the bubbly portrayal of Disha Patani and the subdued performance of Kiara Advani whenever they are on screen though. On the topic of love interest, let me mention the music of the movie, which is given by Amal Malik along with the guest composer Rochak Kohli. Most tracks play out surprisingly well in the background. Thankfully, Dhoni never abruptly stops the film to lip sync to a song or starts dancing in the middle of a bazaar. Some songs are motivational, some instill a feeling of sadness, while others make you want to swoon along with Dhoni as he's falling in love. This film is constructed very well, but some things really stand out and even appear as jarring on some occasions. Let's get the nitpick out of the way first. The story, while condensedly told, appears to be really glorifying Dhoni as a player and a person. I'm not aware of any major controversies related to Dhoni. However, the movie comes across as highly sanitized. Maybe a flaw here or there would make him seem more human, maybe? Another issue that took me out of the movie was the use of CGI and the shift in aspect ratios whenever a news footage or an old cricket clip is shown. Superimposing the face of Sushant Singh Rajput on the body of a teenager comes across as very odd. I can commend the thought behind it, but maybe the technology at the time does not do it justice. Similarly, digitally placing Sushant's head over Dhoni in old cricket footage makes it seem as if something is off. Maybe if the CGI artists were given more time, they could have perfected those shots. These issues aside, MS Dhoni, The Untold Story, is a very inspirational watch that asks its viewers to follow their dreams and pursuing them even when things seem bleak. At a runtime of over 3 hours, it seems a little stretched out, while at the same time rushing to get to the next story point in Dhoni's life. However, you are invested because you are rooting for the character. Sushant brings the movie to life, and seeing him play all the different phases of Dhoni's life with such ease is enough of a reason to recommend this movie. Currently streaming on Hotstar, please give this one a shot if you're a massive Dhoni fan, or even if you just want to learn something about the sport of cricket. Thus, we bring the first episode of Cine Bait to a close. This episode was dedicated to the immensely talented actor Sushant Singh Rajput, who left us way too soon. His roles have always had a truth to them. His acting never seemed overtly polished. You felt for his characters and cared what happened to them. So far, we have only covered half his filmography, but don't worry, we'll cover the rest in the following episode. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast all the way through. I would love any feedback that you might have. You can either leave comments on the Cine Bait YouTube page, tweet at Cine Bait, all one word, or you can DM me on Instagram at cine_bait, which is spelled as CINE_BAIT. Thank you all for joining me. Until next time.